Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Fantastic Four issue 251, cover dated February 1983. So the cover is an eye-catching one, especially with those shapes and colors as the Fantastic Four fall into the negative zone. That's our cover caption. I really like the drawings there of the huge figure of the Thing and then the decreasing sizes of the other members of the Fantastic Four as they move deeper and deeper into the negative zone. Let's open this one up to the splash page. And we have the cover caption, again, as the title of this story. A bold new chapter in the lives of the Fantastic Four into the negative zone. And the creator credits are there to John Byrne, story and art. The cover was by John Byrne, pencils and inks. Jim Novak on letters and Glynis Ween on the colors. So we're looking up from the bottom of this big Kirby Tech tube. And we see up there Reed Richards and the Thing is saying, I don't get it. We don't get it either until we turn the page. Let's see what we are looking at. Well, first of all, Byrne gives us an exterior shot of the Baxter building. It's the top 5 floors that house the various laboratories and living quarters too of the Fantastic Four. I like the way that Byrne is showing us the New York City skyline there in the background as well, leaving some of the skyline open for Glynis Oliver's colors. And we get the conversation continuing between Reed and the Thing. So the Thing says, here we are on the 34th floor of the Baxter building, and this blamed tube looks like it goes down a mile. Didn't the tenants below our headquarters object when you built your latest doohickey right through the middle of their offices? So this is intriguing. Reed says, not at all, Ben. You see, although this new access to the negative zone is 500 meters in length, only 1 meter exists in our reality. The shaft is dimensionally transcendental. So of course, the Thing doesn't follow. Say what? Reed explains, simply put, Ben, the negative zone is a universe existing in a dimension parallel to our own. I've therefore constructed the new access shaft so that most of it is in the negative zone. This eliminates the need for the complex locks and barriers we've required in the past. So the Thing chimes in with, well, seems like an awful lot of fuss for something you once said you was going to close off forever. So we know that Reed is interested, of course, in the wonders that exist in the negative zone, and he says to his friend, I can understand your reticence, Ben, but consider the larger picture. Here, let me activate the negative zone viewing screen. So this is wild that he can actually have a little look into the negative zone via this viewing screen whenever he pleases. Look at it, Ben, he says, a universe as vast and immeasurable as our own, with planets, suns, life forms and civilizations to beggar the imagination. How can we turn our backs on a cosmos so full of awe and wonder? So this is Reed, the archetypal scientist who's driven in his investigations of all the world and universe around him by wonder and awe, the emotions of wonder and awe. So I really like that characterization of Reed by John Byrne. But the Thing has some concerns. Simple, Reed. It's also full of creeps like our old enemy Annihilus. And if he got out again, well, we ain't got no guarantee we'd be able to beat him again. So there we've got a little image of Annihilus there. And he looks pretty menacing in his Silver Age design by Jack Kirby. Let's continue with the story, get past the advertisements. So Reed has something to say to that. He hasn't forgotten about the threats that exists in the negative zone. He says, I haven't forgotten Annihilus, old friend, nor have I forgotten those other strange beings. Blastar, so there he is, and the creature known as Stygor. So really great Silver Age names there for these characters, of course, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Both are also natives of the negative zone, says Reed. So that's a way to catch up any new readers about the main threats of the negative zone, as well as Reed's fascination with it, and a little bit of back history concerning the time he sent Galactus into the negative zone. But Galactus made his way back to our universe because apparently the mysteries of the negative zone daunted even him. And Reed continues here. I like the device of just his head there as he continues his narration. The dangers of megaspace are undeniable, yet surely they are more than balanced. And then he pauses, balanced by the endless wonders we may discover there, wonders beyond anything in our universe. So again, this speaks to Reed's scientific fascination and wonder at the universe and other dimensions, and he just wants to understand what's out there. So the Thing says, you're sounding positively rhapsodic, Stretch. And then they're interrupted by Sue, who's arrived, and she says it's time for the first tenants meeting because, of course, Reed bought the building, and now it comes with responsibilities because the floors below, the top floors, are inhabited by ordinary residents. And here they all are. But before that, Sue says to Reed, you sound like you need a morale boost, sweetheart, something only a loving and devoted wife can provide. So interesting here, the background coloured in red by Glynis Oliver, or Ween, and the narration here, it is time perhaps to look away from the man called Mr. Fantastic and the beautiful Invisible Girl and rejoin them several minutes later. So the red, it's not just a colour that connotes danger, but also romance and, dare I say it, even sex. So what happens in the several minutes between husband and wife? Well, the possibilities would be limited in the imagination of a 10-year-old, but maybe more populated in the imagination of a 16-year-old plus. In any case, they arrive down to the residential levels of the Baxter building, and here are some disgruntled apartment owners, and they want to know about their plumbing, they want to know about the windows, parking, the garbage removal, the elevator, doors stuck, etc., etc. So this is quite a nice panel by Byrne, drawing all these civilian characters with their non-heroic looks, including this guy with his comb over on the top of his bald head. And let's continue with the story. So what about the Thing, and what about the Human Torch? Well, first of all, the Thing is thinking to himself as he gets aboard the Fantastic Four Sky Cycle. He thinks, we got ourselves a mini corporation and all them hassles. Guess I should be glad we ain't public. At least we don't have to deal with stockholders. Boy, I wonder if the Avengers have to worry about stuff like that. Well, who cares anyway? I'm off to see my lady love. But his attention is diverted by a massive traffic jam down on the streets. What the heck is all that racket? He thinks to himself, so he lands, and the local police are delighted to see him, and explains all the construction in this area has really screwed up the traffic patterns. We've got the worst case of gridlock I've ever seen. So the Thing says it shouldn't take long to clear up this jam as he lifts up two of the cars to sort it out. So there you get a little kind of window into the Thing's altruism. He was on his way to see Alicia Masters, but when he saw there was trouble in the city, he just had to set down in order to help out. Elsewhere, Johnny Storm is enjoying himself flying around in the sky. Now, this is what being the Human Torch is all about. But where is he going? He's going to the address that Julie D'Angelo gave him. Julie D'Angelo is this woman here who was the roommate of Frankie Ray before Frankie became Galactus's latest herald. And as Johnny flames off and touches down, he thinks to himself, so that's Julie's dramatic art school. Looks like a set for fame. And I mentioned that before because when Julie was introduced into the comic, it very much was in respect of the style of the early 1980s TV show. and film, if I recall, Fame, and it just had me thinking that Byrne must have been looking at that on the TV and got a little inspiration for the Julie D'Angelo character. So here is Johnny. He touches down and he sees Julie in the corridor and thinks to himself, and there's the delightful Ms. D'Angelo as promised. So Johnny's taking a shine to Julie, so there's going to be love complications in his life, but Julie herself takes a shine to this guy here, and she's got a friend at the school, and she tells Julie, oh, that's Gray Landers. He's taking some kind of refresher course in Mr. Brandis's class. And Julie says, he looks too good to be true, full of his own importance, right? And her friend says, wrong go, girly girl. He's intelligent, charming, witty, well-spoken, well-read, and a walking dream with elbow patches. But I missed this little part here, this speech balloon, where Julie says of him that he's gorgeous and he looks like Christopher Reeve done right. So here we go. So just take a look at Byrne's drawing of this Gray Landers character. There is a visual similarity to Christopher Reeve there, all right. And that's intriguing because Byrne himself has said many times that he's not good at likenesses of real world characters, but I do see the likeness there of Christopher Reeve in this design, so he must have just fancied an opportunity to draw someone that had the physiognomy of Christopher Reeve. In any case, back into the story, Johnny shakes Julie's friend's hand. She makes the introduction. Her name is Sharon Selleck. We've actually seen her before in the issue where the Invisible Girl went on Woman to Woman because Sharon was on staff at TV City. So here is the drama studies teacher, and he invites them into the lecture hall, and Johnny identifies him as Rolf Brandis. He looks a lot like the character that Tom Cruise plays in a lot of makeup in Tropic Thunder, right? Just that particular drawing there. And here in the background, we have the conversation ongoing. Julie confirms that it is Rolf Brandis, and the man himself says another would be Olivier. All right, here are the mimeographed exercises for today. So Johnny's joining in on Julie's acting class there, and here we get this romantic complication that Byrne has come up with in order to give us some interesting subplot for Johnny Storm, who very often isn't a terribly interesting character, maybe the least interesting of the Fantastic Four. So here we go. So he's there thinking, so that's Rolf Brandis. Doesn't seem quite the tiger Julie described. That should make things easier. I'm only in this to get closer to Julie, and that seems to be working just fine. But he's wrong, because she's only got eyes for this Gray Landers Christopher Reeve lookalike. So that's Gray Landers, she thinks to herself. I've heard of him. Now that I think about it, he sure is a living doll. Next question, how do I get him to notice me? And further complication, Julie's friend, her new roommate in fact, has taken a shine to Johnny, and she thinks, so that's Johnny Storm, cute. I wonder if Julie's staked out a claim on him yet, and I wonder if she thinks that'll stop me if she has. So then the scene switches back to the Baxter building, where it's business as usual, and Reed is fielding all these complaints from the angry residents, and Sue pops out and sighs to herself, I hate to desert Reed like this, but putting up with that mob far exceeds my duties as wife and mother. Speaking of which, she checks in on her son Franklin, and there he is playing video games, and it's all very 80s technology there, but you can see that this particular game console is a product of Stark Industries. So Franklin is absorbed in the video game. The comic there on the ground is actually Fantastic Four, and Sue comes up behind him in her invisible form, and she thinks to herself with a smile on her face, he certainly loves his video games. I'd be worried if he didn't have other interests as well. And then she greets him, hey Pumpkin, who's winning? And he gets a big fright, and He actually hugs her for comfort. "You frightened me. I didn't know you were here." So she apologizes, and she thinks to herself, there was a time before he lost his mutant powers when my invisibility wouldn't have hidden me from Franklin. And then she thinks more seriously, "I hadn't given it much thought until now, but the Baxter building is no place for a normal child. No place at all." So what is going to follow on from that thought of Sue's? So Byrne kind of like having an issue for the most part, where he's exploring where all the characters are at in their personal lives, and developing, plot lines for them that he can play around with for the upcoming issues of the comic. And finally, the Thing makes his way to Alicia Masters' apartment. So there's just a nice scene between them. Ben is always worried that Alicia might leave him because of his hideous form, and she says, "Oh, my poor Ben, you must never think that way. Never doubt that I love you. Love your beautiful, wonderful soul." But back at the Baxter building, Reed has had enough of the complaints of the residents. He says, "I promised you everything will be attended to. I'll have my lawyers create a service office just to deal with you," so he never has to deal with them again. So he basically corrals them and encourages them to leave and head out the door. And then he thinks to himself, "Finally, I thought they'd never leave. To think I thought I was eliminating problems when I bought the building outright from Collins." And then he goes up in the lift to the laboratory with the negative zone access. Reed Richards, he thinks to himself, "Boy, businessman," as Ben would no doubt say. "I'll have to get in touch with my lawyers first thing tomorrow before we leave. But for the moment, I can afford to relax." And what better way to do that than by running through the final checks on? You can see the look on his face. He's gone through these doors that have danger printed on them because it's the access point to the negative zone. And here we get a big surprise from John Byrne, which is a double-page spread in the middle of the story. And it's Reed, and he's standing there, hands on hips, and he's delighted with this craft that he has designed and built. The Negative Zone Exploratory Module Mark 1. So it's very, it's a kind of like a synthesis. The design here is a synthesis of Kirby tech, but also John Byrne's interpretation of Kirby tech. And you can just see here as well in this globe, there is Kirby Crackle in there as well, which implies to me maybe something to do with the negative zone itself. So intriguing. And then continue, get past the advertisements there. Late next morning, the Fantastic Four arrive, and Alicia is there too, and Franklin as well. And Reed greets Franklin and Alicia, and he says, "I want you to hear the sound of the zone access cycling, so you'll recognize it when we return." So he hits a button, and the sound is deafening, ka-chung there in the background, Jim Novak's lettering. And Alicia exclaims, "Oh my word," and the Thing says, "Think it's loud enough, Stretch?" Sounds like Galactus with the tummy rumbles. So Reed says, "Remember that sound, Alicia." So that means they've returned from the negative zone when she hears that sound. So Sue says, "It's very nice of Alicia to come here and look after Franklin, but you still haven't said how long you expect us to be away, Reed." And he replies, "That's because I honestly don't know, honey. The time flux in the distortion area around the negative zone may cause our return to seem only hours or minutes after we depart." Franklin asks, just like a 4-year-old, "You going to bring me a present from the negative zone, Daddy?" And that his question will prove ironic in terms of the conclusion of this issue. Reed laughs. He says, "We'll see, son. This is supposed to be a serious trip." So then there's a moment here between Alicia and the Thing. She's worried about him when he goes off on dangerous ventures. And Johnny here is thinking to himself, he's got nobody concerned about him. Fond farewells all around, but not for me, he thinks. I called Julie, but there was no answer. She must be some kind of heavy sleeper. Or maybe she had been out on a date with that Grey Landers character. So but into their journey to the negative zone now. So we get this top-down shot of all of the members of the Fantastic Four in this transporter. An interesting choice here from the letterer to put the speech balloons on the corners, on the corners of the panel border. So we can read Johnny's dialogue first, where he says, "We're a tiny bit exposed on this merry-go-round, ain't we?" The Thing says, "Didn't you forget something in this hot rod stretch? There ain't no bathrooms in the negative zone." Reed says, "Check your food supply, Ben. You'll find it's 100% efficient protein concentrates with no unnecessary waste material. So no bathroom trips will be required while they're in the negative zone." And Sue says, with the text upside down, but I can read it because Jim Novak's letters are so clear, "These seats are remarkable," she exclaims. "I've never felt anything comfortable, so comfortable," she says. "I may not want to get out." But Reed says to Johnny's question, "Not at all, Johnny. Make sure your arms and legs are inside the seating enclosures, everyone. I'm activating the hinge mechanism now." So these arms all come together and it's like a rocket. So they're sitting facing each other now inside this rocket structure. And Reed says, "Internal systems operating perfectly. Stand by for separation." So it looks like the rocket then drops. Let's see. We've got good sound effects there again from Jim Novak. And there it is. It's dropping into the tube or well that we saw earlier at the start of the issue. And Reed continues saying, "Separation completed, we're away. Stabilizers activated, Stretch," says the Thing. "Perfect. T plus 5 seconds approaching exit point." And there they go into the distortion area, this transition liminal space, this liminal space of transition between dimensions. Interesting layout here recalls Neil Adams, the diagonal panel borders, or layout rather, of the panels. And of course Byrne, a big fan of Neil Adams. Let's see here. So the Thing says, "Yippee, that means we've just started the part of the trip I love." And Reed says, "Keep an eye on your stabilizers, Ben, if we should drift off course." So Ben is involved in piloting the craft, the vessel. And Sue says there, she hangs on, "I've never been into the negative zone before. Is it all this rough?" And Reed says, "Only the distortion area, Sue. It's the transitional plane between all realities, but the passage is rougher than I'd anticipated." So what's going on? He says there must be some disturbance not native to this area, some strange flow and ebb in the dimensional matrix, possibly an object of some kind passing near us in the other direction. So possibly, well, what could that object be, and why isn't Reed too concerned about it? Well, he says, "I can't imagine what that flux might be. It seems to be easing," says Sue. "Is that a good sign?" "It is indeed," says Reed, and he's got a little smile on his face as well. And there we go, another full page image. They're successfully into the negative zone. So we've got Byrne using his imagination there for what we're seeing, including this very strange creature here with all these tentacles. And Reed says, "We've made a successful transition. We're in the negative zone." Now, a very odd place to have the letters page here. The letters concern issues 246 and 47. Also very odd and a bad idea to put the next issue box here, because it spoils what happens at the end of this particular one. So don't read this if you don't want the ending spoiled. Then there's bullpen bulletins, an advertisement for the Dark Crystal film. That really is what would I call it, like a time machine back to the early 80s, this particular film. And then here we go. This should have been on a page turn, but what's happening back in the Baxter building, in the Fantastic Four's quarters in the Baxter building? Alicia is babysitting Franklin, who's reading his comics. She's going to fix some lunch for him. and off she walks to the kitchen, and she thinks how lucky Franklin is to be part of such a loving and devoted family. How different my own life might have been had I known such happiness in childhood, instead of her childhood where she had Philip Masters as her stepfather. And then she hears the sound, ka-chung, right? So soon, she thinks to herself. Really like this panel, like seeing Alicia there in front of the sound effect, and a kind of and a borderless panel otherwise. So she gets in the lift, the one that Reed used earlier, going up to the laboratory that houses the entrance point to the negative zone. And she thinks Reed said they might return sooner than expected, but they've been gone less than 2 hours. So she's there. Ben, darling, is that you? No, the gauntleted hand on the door, not Ben. And look at the jagged speech balloon as well. And we saw him earlier when Reed or when the thing mentioned him, Annihilus, and here he is in person, and looking tremendously menacing as well. And he grabs Alicia by the throat, and he declares in proper Silver Age villain fashion and syntax, Ben is gone. All of the thrice cursed Fantastic Four are gone forever. Now shall begin the reign of Annihilus. And then we get just one last narrative caption here. I go back and forth on whether it's necessary or not. Her scream, the plaintive cry of one lost soul, dies in her throat. So she's unable to scream because he's got her by the throat. Annihilus is free on Earth, and the FF don't even know it. You must not miss Cityscape. We guarantee you'll be surprised. So I've said it before in respect of my reviews of issues 249 and 250, but at this point in Byrne's run on Fantastic Four, he is his art is developing. He is going for more of these full page images. So we have this one, we have this one, we have the double page spread in the middle, and the splash page at the beginning. That is 5 pages of the 22 pages of story and art given over to the art. So I find that intriguing. He's becoming very comfortable as writer-artist on the title, and he's trying things out, and it's working well. Plus, I'm interested in this Negative Zone story. It's different from the done-in-ones that he's done up to this point, as well as the Doctor Doom stuff that he did twice. So the Negative Zone, I'm interested, and I'm keen to see how this develops in the coming issues. So there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Fantastic Four issue 251, Into the Negative Zone. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.